Hi everybody, I'm Tim from troutandfeather.com, and in this 2-minute fly tying tutorial, I'm going to share with you the current version I tie of the Utah Killer Bug. Stay tuned. Let me give you a sneak peek of the Utah Killer Bug. This is one that I originally shared around 4 years prior to the making of this video. It was brought to my attention by my buddy Tom from State College, Pennsylvania. We've used this quite a bit over the last few years, but as I really kind of went all in with contact or European nymphing, I've adjusted a lot of my flies, and now this is the version of the Utah Killer Bug that I tie. So let's get a clean hook in the vise and start tying this one. Let's start tying this one. In my Stonfo Cayman vise, I have a Honic competition hook. It's their H450BL. That BL designation stands for barbless, and I definitely recommend barbless hooks for the majority of freshwater applications. The one thing that I love about the Honic 450 is that it's a jig hook, which means when you have it paired with the appropriate bead, it will ride hook point up. That means less snags, that means you're going to lose less flies. That's a great thing. The bead that I have it paired with is a 2.5 millimeter slotted tungsten. The color is silver. It's from Hazard Fly Fishing, and it's definitely going to provide a lot of weight, though I want to add just a little bit more to ensure that this fly is really riding on the bottom. So I'm going to add some .010 lead wire. I'm going to go between 3 to 5 wraps. I'm going to take that wire and kind of shove it up against the bead. If you're lucky, sometimes with the right bead, it will also kind of get hidden inside the bead. All right, once we have it there, I'm going to grab my thread. I'm using A-Dot Uni thread. The color is fluorescent fire orange. I'm just going to kind of lock that thread right up against my wire. Wrap back. Then I'm going to wrap back towards the wire, cover it a little bit, and then I'm going to wrap right around that tag end of that wire, a couple in front and behind. Then if you take it and just kind of pinch it with your fingernail, it should pinch right off. If there's anything extra there, you can kind of just shove that down a little bit, but it's going to get hidden underneath everything else that we have. And then next, let's get with the body material. This is a yarn from Jamieson's called Shetland Spindrift. The color is Oyster. It's a 2-ply. Once you have that, you can just separate them. And then I'm going to take a piece of this, and it's going to be around, we'll say 3.5 inches long. I'm going to attach it directly where I left my thread. Just going to go one wrap, kind of pull it so I don't have to really trim it or anything. Wrap back to about where the barb would be on the hook. Once I get there, wrap back forward. I don't worry too much about making a taper or anything with this fly. Next, we're going to start wrapping it. But before we do that, I'm going to attach my Stonfo Elite hackle pliers to it because they're going to help me spin this yarn in place. Now, I'm going to attach them back around, let's say 3 inches. And I have some excess. It's going to be too much and it might spin back up, so I'm just going to remove that. Now, we have an option here. I can spin it as I'm facing the hook either clockwise or counterclockwise. I've spun it both ways, and I definitely prefer clockwise. I'll show you what happens if we spin it counterclockwise in a bit, but for now I'm just going to start spinning it. And basically what I want to have happen is kind of have this yarn start to look like a rope. So I want it really tight, almost to the point where it's kind of kinking up against itself. So I'm just spinning it, going kind of slow for the video, and if I let it kind of go towards itself, you'll see how it starts to kink. Once it does that, then I know I have it tight enough. So as I start to wrap, it's going to try to almost unwrap or go to my left, your right. So I can just spin it a few more times. I want to make sure it's really tight. And I want to make sure as I wrap, I have touching wraps. So I'm just going to keep spinning it as I go. Don't spin it too much, because if you spin it too much, sometimes it will tear. Now if you notice as you're wrapping forward that they're not touching wraps, you see a little bit of that orange or whatever color your thread is peeking through, that's not a problem. Looks like it may be unwrapping just a little bit, or maybe it's just me. I'm getting close to the bead. And once I'm there, I can tie off. So I'm just going to get a couple wraps. want to trim this stuff really close in there. And now I chose fluorescent fire orange because we're going to use this as a hot spot, basically right behind the bead, kind of as a collar. So I'm just going to wrap it around 8 times and then go into a whip finish. So I'm going to just do around a 4-turn whip finish. Then I'm going to add some head cement. The head cement I'm using is this Sally Hansen's Mega Shine. Just want a little bit in there just to kind of hold everything together. Same thing, I'll put around 4 more turns. And I'm almost going more, not less, just to kind of help out with my hot spot. Once I have that, let's trim our thread, and there is our finished Utah Killer Bug. I really want this body compact. I want it very tight. I want it so you can almost see those spins because it almost creates a natural ribbing. Now there's lots of variations to this fly. It's been a great one for me over the years, but this is really the one that I've come to use on a regular basis. Now the one thing I want to show you before we change the camera angle, if you remember I said you could either spin that yarn clockwise or counterclockwise. Well, this is what happens whenever you spin it counterclockwise. And what happens, the yarn, as you start to wrap, it wants to kind of jump forward. So it creates almost a natural ribbing or a natural spacing. Now, on first glance, it makes it look almost haphazard, that it was unintentional. It just doesn't look finished. It doesn't look complete. It kind of just, it doesn't look right, at least to me. But I can tell you the fish still like it this way because what happens is that because of that natural spacing, that orange really does kind of glow or shine through, and you can really see that deep orange as a body color. So kind of keep that in mind, that if you spin it the wrong way and you notice there's some gapping, fish it. Don't retie it. It's going to work just fine. Trust me. This is the one that I have just tied. This is what it looks like. Now whenever you tie it clockwise again, try to get that a little straighter for you. So I'll give you one more quick 360 look at the fly. And now let's change the camera angle a little bit and we'll talk a little bit more about this Utah Killer Bug, but from a fly fishing perspective. Yes, the fly is definitely that easy. So let me first tell you a little bit about how this video came to be. A number of years ago, my buddy Tom Glass from the State College, Pennsylvania area had been tying and fishing this one, and he told me about it. And he said that I had to tie it, I had to fish it. I did. It worked really well, and he said, Tim, you got to put this one on YouTube and share it with others. I was happy to do so because it was a great fly that was developed by the Tenkara Guides. I'll put a link to them down below in the description of this video. Now, the original fly that I shared, it was tied on a scud hook, and we had all these different variations of that one. It was a great one. It caught a lot of fish, but when I released the video, that one just received so many different reactions from people. I believe it was because the name Utah Killer Bug, and as soon as they saw Killer Bug, it was just quickly associated with Frank Sawyer's original version, and people were just really quick to point out how it was different, how maybe it wasn't using the same materials, it wasn't tied right, and it was interesting to see how many different reactions there were to that video. It was very popular. I have a lot of views on that video, and so many people reached out to me thanking me for that video because the fly caught fish. It was a great one then. It still is today, and I really just taking a step back, I was blown away by all the different reactions, and I just want to make sure that it wasn't lost in the mix of all those conversations that this is a fly that catches fish. Is it an offshoot of Frank Sawyer's Killer Bug? Absolutely. Is it great? Absolutely. And now I want to show you more of a current version of this fly that kind of fits in with some of the modern nymphing techniques. So this fly is tied with Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. This yarn was a little bit more difficult to find years ago, though it seems to be out there in abundance today. Once I started learning about this fly, whenever I previously tied it, I went in with a couple buddies and we bought a bunch of different colors of this stuff. Though if I said to you there's one color that you probably should use and start there, it's going to be the color Oyster. It's really the go-to one. It's pretty much the one that you'll find me tying about 90% of the time. There are some other colors that I'll play around with in some really just unique situations, but this is the one that I would kind of recommend for all of you. And to talk about the fly, I mean, you saw it from that fly tying perspective. I'll put a link to the original video down below in the description of this one, but the one that you saw is the one that I tie. I like to just kind of keep it simple. I like to keep a really tight body. I like to use that fluorescent thread for a hot spot and a bead. So what you see is kind of what you get, at least from my perspective. Though, if you talk to my buddy Tom and you talk to so many others out there, there are just some crazy variations of this fly, and they work great. But I want to include this in my 2-minute fly tying tutorial series. I want to keep this really just down and dirty because it's a guide style fly that just you can crank out and they work really well. Let's talk about how they work though, because there's a couple situations and there's a couple instances in which I'll fish this one over others. To me, this is a fly that is going to be imitating probably 2 bugs, 2 or 3. Caddis flies, absolutely. It's also going to imitate those crest bugs and sometimes scuds. Those are kind of the 3 that, if I think about a waterway that really is just loaded up with those ones, this is the style of fly that I'm going to go to. Now I'm going to be fishing this fly in a little bit faster moving water. I'm not going to kind of be drifting this through the bottom of a pool. Instead, I'm going to be kind of moving up to where the riffle dumps into the pool, and I'm going to fish it along those edges in kind of a normal flow of water. So those are the types of situations in which I'll fish this. For sure, if there's caddis flies in the water, this is one that you want to go to. This is just an easy one. I'll fish it with another fly at times. This is one that I'll really just keep right on the bottom, and then I'll have a dropper and an emerger a little bit higher up from it. That way, if I know that there's a caddis hatch that's going to be starting, I know that I have both that bottom of the water column and kind of the mid-level covered in terms of whatever caddis pattern might be happening at that time, especially tan caddis. So this is one of those ones that I'm going to say, get out there. Don't get caught up by the name Utah Killer Bugs and how it is or isn't different. Just focus on the fact that this one catches fish. It's a great one. Well, with that said, thank you so much for watching this fly tying tutorial. If you'd like to watch more like it, you can check out my website, which is troutandfeather.com. Once there, if you go to the home page and you scroll down to the bottom, you can sign up for occasional email updates. On troutandfeather.com, I have all kinds of videos. I have some nymph videos. I have some that are streamers. I have guest tires. There is all kinds of stuff there. I hope you enjoy it. And if you do enjoy some of the videos, I would really be just elated or very grateful if you could share out any of that stuff, especially via social media. You can find Trout and Feather on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm happy to share kind of those behind the scenes things that go on. And it's also great to connect with all of you in those types of settings. So reach out to me there and we can talk more. If you have any comments or questions, by all means leave them down below in the comment section of this video, or you can email me at tcammisa@gmail.com. Once again, everybody, this is the Utah Killer Bug. This is, we'll call it a revised, modern edition of the fly. I hope you like it as much as I do, and I'll see all of you next time.